Hey guys, it's Godbars here, the self-proclaimed hip-hop historian, and this is the 388th episode of my series, where I grab a vinyl from my collection, talk about why I love it, what influence it has, and what its place is in the grand scheme of hip-hop. So it's been a pretty good while now since I last discussed the noisy, experimental, California-based hip-hop group Clipping, which is made up of alien MC Daveed Diggs, who you may know through his major role in the highly successful Broadway musical Hamilton, and the other two members come in the form of producers William Hudson and Jonathan Snipes. While these guys have created a pretty prolific and dense discography starting from their 2014 Mid-City project, all the way to 2019's There Existed an Addiction to Blood. In fact, they actually just earlier this year released a dope LP called Dead Channel Sky. The only album from the outfit that I've covered before now, which I'll link down below in the description, is their sophomore album, CLPPNG, which also came out in 2014 and then was followed up a couple years later in 2016 when they released the masterpiece of a concept album that we're focusing on today, titled Splendor Misery. It's not usually the most commonly referenced by fans, but this truly innovative piece of rap music did garner some much-deserved acclaim and awards, and I remember being absolutely blown away by this thing when it first dropped, because even though I had already been won over by their previous release, I was still taken aback by just how layered and coded the verses are, while still building this pretty clear and cohesive story, and the production plays a dire role in that as well, with the boys utilizing everything from trap music to white noise, in an effort to paint this sonic landscape where, to put it simply, our protagonist, named Cargo Number 2331, played by Daveed, who we spend the album following, is trapped in this mechanical, sci-fi inspired spacecraft, though our main character basically describes it as an abandoned slave ship. Right off the bat, this blend between futurism and history feels like an extremely fresh and creative angle, and it's largely built on the back of Will and John's producer chops, as their knowledge and love for industrial, challenging soundscapes proved especially useful this time around, as they incorporate mechanical noises into virtually every beat, helping to build on this environment even further, and truly give you the sense that you've been brought along as an observer on this dark, twisted journey through space. It's really innovative and unique how they find ways to interconnect these ideas of Afrofuturism, like how in certain tracks, Clipping enlists a group of gospel singers to deliver these powerful a cappella passages that sound directly derived from old slave chants. But like everything else here, it's put in this bleak, futuristic, and post-apocalyptic context. And another theme they touch on multiple times that sticks out to me is how our protagonist paints himself as the last known human trying to navigate this sci-fi adventure, but whether it's during his time as a captive, or after he makes his escape and has to figure out where to go and what to do next, he often finds himself rapping just in an attempt to retain his sanity and human connection. Daveed references all kinds of West Coast hip-hop on this thing, whether it's a line about his character quoting Kendrick Lamar's legendary Control verse over and over, or in one of the many interludes where the MC is instead giving a more raw, lo-fi freestyle as another means of passing time and not going insane, when he shouts out Tupac by incorporating the famous "Do you wanna ride or die" line. I also really respect how this LP only set aside a minute for the Long Way intro, which outside of the brief poem that's delivered throughout, is basically just an ambient backdrop that brings you into this world, but doesn't overstay its welcome in the slightest. We then go into The Breach, another pretty short track. In fact, this one doesn't even hit the 1 minute mark, but that's made up for by how it throws you right into the story, with Daveed Diggs using an especially fast, mechanical, and robotic flow, which is basically because he's rapping from the point of view of the ship's computer, and as such, he's kind of just spitting information at us as if it's a stream of data. I actually think this would be a fitting moment to share some bars from, considering it doesn't really spoil too much when it comes to the overall concept, yet it does reveal just enough to the point where I think it would make a good teaser track. And even more importantly, it's one of David's most technical and impressive performances on Splendor Misery. He kicks this extremely creative song off by getting right to the point, and keep in mind, obviously I'm not going to even remotely be able to replicate the speed he delivered this at, but either way, he comes in rapping. Generally operating normally, a small anomaly has become evident and probably should be noted. There is spiking in the pulse of a member of the cargo, and the crew and other passengers have not begun to notice. The facility you'd certainly take yourself to cultivate, for all intents and purposes, is totally accepted, but the readings that are coming through are not. Negating wholly the hypothesis seem to be unable to suggest it. First, the recommended cause of action should be to administer a sedative to all the cargo via ventilation. The ship is fully capable of automating this, but requires an approval code from the administration. Again, it cannot easily be overstated the importance of alacrity in acting out the task commanded. The pulses of the cargo are still rising, and endorphins that are often linked to violence are too critical to manage. Now, one specifically is moving to the door. He has found the access panel situated in the floor. He is entering the codes and overriding has begun. Reading rage in the nervous system, nothing can be done, it seems. To seem to circumvent necessity of physical restraints, send security immediately over to the gate. Remember that these beings were selected for their strength. Use your armies as accordingly in order to be safe. After that, Will and John hit us with this wall of static, where it's virtually a noise collage using a cacophony of sounds to represent the battle that's taking place right after the events stated in the verse. And there's frankly dozens of other stellar qualities I could bring up about this thing, just a couple examples being how at one point our protagonist finds himself being protected by the ship, who actually falls in love with cargo number 2331 and vows to protect him and defend their love. Or like how later on, he puts himself in a cryogenic sleep with aid of the ship in a last-ditch attempt to wake up far in the future, hopefully in a better time and place. I know I say it a lot and it can come off like a cheap way of not talking more about the LP, but I really do think this is one of those experiences that's much better understood and appreciated once you actually sit down and give it a try yourself. And since literally all of the rapping and production was handled by the 3 members of Clipping, I can get right into my favorite tracks, and overall for this one, I would have to narrow my top 3 down to Air 'Em Out, True Believer, and All Black. However, you better believe I have some recommendations for honorable mentions, and this time around, those would include songs like The Breach, Wake Up, Break the Glass, Interlude 01 Freestyle, Long Way Away, Interlude 03 Freestyle, Baby Don't Sleep, and A Better Place. Thank you for watching my 388th video. Next time, we are returning to a modern MC who, despite only being on the page once before, is definitely one of my biggest modern lyrical inspirations. So look for that review, and if you enjoyed, be sure to like, subscribe, and let me know what your favorite moments are off this true masterpiece of a concept album. Don't forget to have a great day, and I'll see you next time, okay? Alright.